Welcome to Muslim Apologetics Australia. So in this video, I want to discuss the inconsistency and the double standards when it comes to conspiracy theories within the Islamic Ummah. So this is about ISIS, Hamas, and the Taliban. Many Muslims, because they can't deal with explaining why ISIS has emerged and how it created so much havoc in the Muslim world, many Muslims jumped onto the theory that this is a Wahhabist Khawarij movement that is in line with Israel and America and wanted to create havoc in the Muslim world. This stems from Imam Abdul Wahhab, as they claim. This is the same movement. This is the same movement of Al-Qaeda with Osama bin Laden, which has branched off to different shoots. But if we actually look at their core fundamental belief, they are all here as Khawarij movements that are at its core created by Jews and created by America to take control of the Middle East and kill as many Muslims as possible. They basically have even a name for it. They call it the Hornet's Nest. So the Hornet's Nest is basically where they build an organization. They claim it's Islamic. They live by the Quran and the Sunnah, and they preach Khilafah, and they preach Muslim unity. And then what they do is they get all the extremists all around the world to join them, and then that way they could actually kill them. But before they actually kill those extremists, they allow this extremist organization to flourish in such a way where it starts killing so many people. And we know that most of their, and this is the claim that they make, they say most of the victims of ISIS have been actually Muslims themselves, not non-Muslims. So they actually kill more Muslims than they actually kill non-Muslims. And then they allow these groups to go out and commit terrorism in the West, and then that gives a justification to go in there and continue to sell arms to foreign nations, to continue to be in this war with terrorism, but in reality it's war with Islam, and they name it terrorism, the war on terror, but what they're basically saying is a war on Islam. So they say that ISIS, the Muslims actually say that ISIS was actually created by Israel and America to justify war, continuous war and aggression. But you notice that this narrative can actually flip. If we're going to use this as an argument, then you need to be consistent and apply it elsewhere. So, for instance, many people claim that, for instance, Hamas is just a resistance group, right? They're only there to resist and fight for the Palestinian cause because of the injustice committed by Israel against the Palestinian people. Well, then you can literally say that Israel and America actually created Hamas so they can continually fight against the Palestinian people, so they can continuously commit genocide against the Palestinian people. One could say that Israel, in fact, is arming Hamas. In fact, we can even say that there is a reason why Israel kills more Palestinian civilians than it actually kills Hamas fighters, right? And we saw this. It took how many years that they couldn't even find Hamas? They've got all the sophistication, all the technology in the world, yet they can't find where Hamas is, right? Some people say, oh, well, that's because they're in the tunnels, right? They're in the tunnels. You're controlling all the tunnels. You're, you're controlling all of this stockpiling of weapons that go into these tunnels. One could say it's Israel that's allowing the borders to open for these weapons to get smuggled in. We saw and again, I'm not saying that Israel is creating Hamas, but what I'm saying is you can make an argument for that as well. So much supply chain, the food sources, you could turn around and say, oh, well, Hamas prepared years for that. Okay, well, did Hamas prepare years for that, or did Israel actually help and prepare for this? For this moment, there was stand down order. As Charlie Kirk says, he says on October 7, there was a stand down order, which allowed October 7 to happen. And you think to yourself, okay. As some people even say, and they quote from Israeli politicians, where they say they want Hamas to exist. Because if they don't have Hamas in existence, how could they justify their ongoing aggression and war against the Palestinian people? So you could literally make that argument that you make for ISIS in bed with Israel and America. You can literally make that argument for Hamas. Not only for Hamas, you can even make it for the Taliban. You could say, and we've got evidence that say that even America was funding the Taliban to fight against the Russians. So you could literally say that the Taliban was actually in bed with Israel and America as well to create more destruction in Afghanistan and more killing and bloodshed in Afghanistan. So you can literally make that argument for any organization. You can make it for the Taliban. You can make it, you can make it for ISIS. You can make it for Hamas, right? And this is why people say that Osama bin Laden, for instance, was a CIA agent. He was part of them, right? And that's why America allowed the Twin Towers to get bombed, right? People say that. And then, so that helped America invade and war with Iraq and war with Afghanistan. Well, okay, let's use that same argument, that same theory with Hamas. People like Daniel Hakikator would never like that, right? He would never accept that, right? He would never accept that because he won't see Hamas at its core beliefs connected to Imam Abdul Wahhab and the Wahhabi movement, right? Because it's not really convenient for him to do that. But one could actually say, yes, this is all part of it. This is all part of the American and Israeli agenda. And in fact, it is much worse. What ISIS did in the Muslim world is far less compared to what Hamas did, right? Yes, America used ISIS, you could say, to invade Iraq and destabilize Syria and so forth. But if you see actually what Hamas did, this is much worse. They actually disarmed Iran. They took them out. Iran was the closest country to create a nuclear warhead. The second Muslim country after Pakistan, Iran was the closest country to create a nuclear warhead. And Iran had more of an influence to attack Israel because it's in more of a close proximity compared to Pakistan. So Iran is more of a threat to Israel because it can actually develop a nuclear warhead and which can actually be an easier target for Israel. So the fact that Hamas, it actually brings more emphasis on Hamas being created by Israel and America than it is for ISIS, because creating Hamas is much more influential because then you can actually attack all of Israel's neighbors, right? which helps Israel to expand into other countries, and they're already expanding into southern Lebanon. They've taken the Golan Heights, which is a strategic point, and from there they could actually attack Turkey and bring down Turkey, which is the second largest superpower in the Muslim world. And they've already disarmed and took out Iran. So the conspiracy you make for ISIS, and say, oh, well, ISIS created so much havoc in the Muslim world, you can literally make a bigger case for Hamas. You can make a much bigger conspiracy case for that and say that organization most definitely was created by Israel and America, because it has so much more impact on the Muslim world. I mean, ISIS destabilized Syria, but Bashar al-Assad, removing him and putting in another Islamic government or a different Islamic government, they're useless. No nuclear capability. The country is destroyed. It's basically destabilized. Okay, yeah, that's bad in the Muslim Ummah. You've taken out Syria, but it's not as bad as taking out Iran, right? Iran is probably the third biggest superpower in the Muslim world. And you've literally using Hamas to take that out. That's even a greater conspiracy. That is even more valid of a conspiracy than it is for ISIS or the Taliban. I mean, Taliban, who's that? What greater threat does that give to the Western world? Destabilizing Afghanistan or destabilizing Iraq or destabilizing Syria. That isn't the greatest catastrophe for the Muslim world. The greatest catastrophe is taking out Gaza, removing that area, and then growing your tentacles into Lebanon, and then removing Iran out of the power dynamics, and then moving on to their agenda to then take out Turkey. And then possibly they'll probably eventually move to Pakistan. So, so we need to be consistent when we're actually labeling ISIS as a creation of the United States and Israel. So to be fair, and if you asked my opinion, I don't believe that Israel or America has got involvement in creating ISIS. I think that ISIS was a resistant group, just like similar to Hamas or similar to the Taliban, but they went to much more extreme measures, and they tried to justify this by misinterpreting the Quran and going to a lot more extreme measures. And this happened after the fall of Saddam Hussein, and you had a Sunni resistance group who wanted to reclaim their dominance in Iraq and the Levant and things like that, because they just couldn't handle America coming out there, destroying the country and giving the land of Iraq to Iranian leadership. So this is the result of that. So similar. I personally do not believe that Hamas is a creation of Israel and America. I don't believe that. I also genuinely believe that they are a resistance group who are there to resist against Israeli aggression, whether it's in with the West Bank or whether it's in Gaza. And I don't believe it's a creation of Israel and America. Yes, there are plans that they do. Yes, I do understand that they do groom certain terrorist individuals to commit certain crimes. I'm sure that actually happens behind the scenes. But in this case, if we're going to say that ISIS is a creation of America and Israel, then we're going to have to be consistent and use that for the Taliban and use that for Hamas as well. And, If you disagree, that's up to you. I'd like to hear your comments if you want to add something in there, but we need to be consistent as Muslims. And just in case you're not that convinced, right? Just in case you're not, because some people are going to object and say, oh, it's not as bad as what ISIS did in America, in Iraq, or it's not as bad as what the Taliban did or Osama bin Laden did in the Twin Towers building, which is a conspiracy and it attacked the entire Muslim world and stuff like that. If you think it's not as bad, what all the atrocities that have happened after October 7, you need to have a good hard look at yourself. We've had over 80,000 people who have been killed. There's absolutely no resistance left in Gaza. The West Bank is literally going to be taken over. Southern Lebanon is literally getting taken over. Possibly Turkey is going to get taken over. And it's probably going to move into other fractions as well. And what is actually really tragic is that Iran has been completely disarmed at this point. Most of their generals have been killed, right? And then you look at the strategic things that have actually happened as well here. There's more disunity now between the Shias and the Sunnis. So you see how Iran even started attacking all the Sunni areas, right? So then you could say, we could say it's created much more havoc now because it's literally alienated and isolated Iran from the Sunni world. You saw how Iran was constantly attacking American bases and stuff like that, of course, in the Gulf countries. But we see how there's this big fracture cause. I mean, the fracture was already there, but now it's even larger, right? So and America and Israel are licking their lips at this, right? They're saying, not only did we disarm Iran using Hamas, we also alienated Iran completely from the rest of the Gulf countries, right? So, so I mean, that is really catastrophic to what's happened to the disunity in the Muslim world. And then you also have how now a lot of those Gulf countries have now sided with Israel. This is a tragic thing, right? So they created Hamas, right? You could say they created Hamas. They created things like October 7. They started expanding and destroying all these Muslim countries like Iran. And then they started creating disunity between Iran and the Gulf countries. And then those Gulf countries actually joined Israel because of what Hamas is doing. And, because, they're telling the world that Iran is supporting Hamas. And Iran isn't just supporting Hamas. Iran is also creating a nuclear warhead, not just to attack Israel, but if they create they're going to also attack all the Gulf countries as well. So we need to attack Iran. So then it got all those Gulf countries to join Israel, because the Gulf countries like, well, if they're going to attack Israel, they're probably going to attack us as well because we're Sunni, right? So it's America and Israel are literally licking their lips in creating Hamas to create all this disunity and fragmentation of the Muslim world. So there is much more, you could argue there is much more conspiracy to believe that Israel actually created Hamas than things like ISIS and the Taliban. Anyway, with that, I'll let it be.